I don't think we have the luxury anymore to have managers in critical positions that are not leaders.
Bring me a problem, but bring me a solution.
And you can teach any leader to do that in about 5 to 10 minutes.
How
I
did
know
we
you
get
are.
such an icon of leadership in healthcare?
Spend some time on 8 to 10 principles that make a difference.
Welcome to the Leaders Abstract, the podcast about the inner work of leadership. Here we explore the ideas, habits, and blind spots that shape how mission-driven leaders show up for their teams and the communities they serve. I'm Dr. Jeremy Rutter, your host. With me, as always, my co-host, Mr. Joe Tomaino. Joe, how are you?
Good, Jeremy, yourself?
I'm doing very well, very well.
Good. I'm really excited about today's podcast. I mean, how
I
did
know
we
you
get such
are.
an icon of leadership in healthcare? My God.
I'm very excited too. I think this is just going to be wonderful. And I'll let you do the honors to introduce our guest today.
Sure. So Mr. Clint Maun is our guest today, and I've been in, I transitioned from acute care into long-term care back in the late '90s, and first became familiar with Clint attending, leading age conferences and hearing him speak, and then was involved in a few places where he was consulting for us, and really came to appreciate him, and I know he's got a lot to share with us today. Clint, you have an interesting story where you were basically a farm boy, and how did you end up getting into healthcare, and how did your experience on the farm influence your leadership style?
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be on this Leadership Abstract podcast too today. I appreciate you guys doing this for the profession. Um, I grew up in Missouri. I grew up on a hog farm. My father kept telling me as I got older, this hog could be yours one day. And I went, good God, I'm not chasing hogs. My dad was a cheap German, so he believed it was better to have children than to buy new fence. And so we would routinely have to go out, come back after school, chase hogs, get them back in, feed them. Then there's all the input output issue of hogs, and then there's the processing of the hogs. And anyway, so I'd made a determination as a young man that farming is an honorable profession, but I wasn't taking this thing over. So when he said you can leave and go get a real job, that's what you call it when you leave the farm, go to town, get a real job or something like that, and you can still live here and I'll feed you and let you sleep here, and you can chase hogs when you get off work, or you can chase hogs all day and I'll let you live here and I'll feed you and let you sleep here. He's a very caring man. And so I chose the somewhat brilliant maneuver of getting out of Dodge, and I went to town and get a job. And I went to town to get a job as a teenager, knowing I still have to chase these hogs. But I went to town, and the local nursing home hired me as an orderly, a male nursing assistant back in the day. They actually hired me because I was big, so I could pick them up and carry them and transport them and whatever. I never dropped anybody. I was kind. I started to really like seniors and care. Even though they moved me around, they put me in dietary for a while, and we had some food poisoning, and I was over driving the van one weekend. I wrecked it, and then I was I think I had a short stint in accounting. We were missing some cash, those messy little resident trust accounts. I found out you can't do one for you, one for me. Um, I even called bingo a couple times. They kicked me out of that, for a riot with the residents on the conspiracy of the wrong numbers being called. But anyway, I was a transient, but I was very flexible. I stayed in it through high school into college, then got into management. Management in healthcare is actually not that too hard. If you show up and act like you care and actually do care, one Friday afternoon, you're in charge because one goes squealing out and one goes squealing in, kind of similar to the hogs. And so I got into management. I was an administrator when I was 21, couldn't spell it, but I was that. But back in that day, that was mow the grass and keep folks indoors. I was kind of security guy, administrator, and maintenance guy. In fact, I started in healthcare so long ago that how light a care we had in long-term care is there people that would drive in and stay for the day as residents and drive home. That's how light a care there was back in
Oh
that
my
day.
gosh,
And that
wow.
wasn't just my place. There were many. Anyway, I became administrator and then a regional and then an equity owner. in healthcare. Got to Omaha, where I live today, about 3 hours up the road from the Missouri area, and I got there as one of the equity partners in a company, and we managed 42 nursing homes and 8 hospitals and the beginnings of personal care back in the day. We also ran 100 group homes for the developmentally disabled on the West Coast. Back in the day, that was taking people who really didn't need to be in state institutions and giving them housing in the community to live and go to vocational school or whatever. And so we had those. And anyway, it was a pretty big operation. We actually had a car dealership too, because we needed to sell ourselves vans and, for transports. And anyway, so we broke that up peacefully. But I was the executive operator of the company, and one gal wanted the group homes, one gentleman wanted the nursing homes, one other person wanted the some other components of. We had home care too, and myself and a guy named Lemke, hence our name Mount Lemke. We took the some equity in the healthcare operations, but we took the consulting company we'd formed because back in that day no providers had anybody to help them, so we would be willing to help people across the country, consulting on things to try to make sure they were successful. And that's how Mount Lemke started 40 some years ago, and been involved in the profession ever since. I have found that I love the residents, I love the staff, I love the profession, whether it's acute care, post-acute care, ambulatory care, home and community-based care. I like care, and the hogs became a distant memory. So that's the
Wow.
That's a great story. And I will say, Clint, the first time I heard your name was maybe 15 years ago when I was a young administrator. I just come into, just got my license and came into a place out in Western New York, and they couldn't stop talking about the man from Omaha.
Yeah, that's what I always told people as a joke. If you get upset and you get people upset because you're changing things or doing stuff, just blame, I met a guy from Omaha. That's what I
That's
tell
what
them.
they did. They
And
talked about the
so
man from
that's been
Omaha used
told,
to
that
be there.
story is all across the country. And some people, do blame me. I wouldn't be doing this, but I met a guy from Omaha, and it works. And why didn't you go to church on Sunday? I met a guy from Omaha.
That's
How's
right.
the conference? I met a guy from Omaha. But in any event, yeah, I'm proud of the fact that we got known around the country, not just me, but our other culprits in our company. And we've put mediated things out in videos, and we have people. I got somebody call the other day to our office and wanted to see if we still had a copy because they broke their VHS copy of a video from 30. And I go, you're still using VHS
Oh my
for,
gosh.
and I go, so we sent them redone components that are now on disc, or whatever. I don't know, just to help them, for God's sakes. That was,
But
but,
That's
but yes,
incredible.
I appreciate you saying that, Jeremy. Thank you.
but you've had to pivot a lot over those 40 years. I mean, the industry has changed so much. I
Well,
remember you
yeah.
saying once, we've made money from the waist down. Now we got to figure out how to make money from the waist up.
Well, in the revenue side of the thing, everything used to be hips and knees, and Medicare was all about short-term stay with no definition of how long they would stay, and then that's all changed. And you now have to, if we work on revenue and staffing as our basic thrust, because those are the P&L statement things. I mean, you're not going to be alive if you don't have enough revenue to float the boat, and you have to do it for the right price. And price is staffing in healthcare. It's 75% of all the cost. And staffing's been a mess forever since the 14th century when I started. It got better, worse, better, worse, better, better, and it unwound during COVID. And revenue has been hurt by staffing in the last 5 or 6 years because people can't open beds up because they don't have the staff to take
Right.
them. They're jamming up people out. But it also, revenue has changed to higher complexity, niche-based business, people with very sick people coming in, short-term and long-term. Yeah, it's all changed. And staffing's changed too. What it took to lead coworkers 30 years ago has nothing to do with what it takes to lead 18 to 22-year-olds today, So yeah, everything has to adapt. That's right.
That's right. Yes, and one of the relics that was left by you at that old place out in Western New York was a pin that said no
Oh,
BMG. And now this was a Free Methodist organization, so I'm sure you know who it is. But Free Methodist, very conservative, and we don't use that B word, so we changed it to belly aching.
Yes, well, we now have those pins, and we've probably actually, Jeremy, there's probably over 1 million of those pins out in the country, kind of
well,
thing. Uh,
you better for our
and, and
viewers and
and
listeners.
BMG stands
Yeah.
for no belly aching, moaning, and groaning. Now the B word is also a different word for the
That's right.
people who, but no belly aching,
Spice
moaning,
it
and
up a little
groaning
bit.
is a cultural phenomenon, not just a slogan. I use simple terms to get people to remember things, so that's
Right.
why we do that. But we believe in P equals S. One of our leadership principles, if there's a problem, you have to be able to talk about a solution. Don't let people come to your office, belly aching, moaning, groaning, whining, sniveling, sticky note leaving, problem finding. Engage them and say, what do you think we ought to do to solve it? How would you suggest we fix it? What do you recommend? Quit letting people, and I tell people they ought to use it at home. Quit letting your kids bring all the problems to you. They'll be living with you at 32 in your basement, and you'll be working doubles to bring home beer for them. So we believe it solidifies marriage, patches the relationship with your mother-in-law. We believe it's a phenomenon of culture in healthcare, and we believe it's a personal philosophy you have to adapt. So yeah, we're telling people stop the belly aching, moaning, groaning, but you have to stop it yourself first.
That's
Now,
right.
our profession has a lot of people all the way up to the top of organizations that want to spend time on the crap, the negativity, the doomsday, the
That's right.
whatever. Well, then you teach everybody else in your organization to do the same thing, and now all you've got is a culture of hopelessness.
Yes, absolutely. And so, do you see that over your decades of experience, that different generations are responding differently to that no BMG, and how is this newest generation responding to that type of? Because I love the idea of it, of bring me a problem, but bring me a solution. Or when you bring me a problem, I'm not going to solve it for you. I'm going to ask you, how do you want to solve it? Are
And
you seeing
Jeremy,
that
you're
with the younger
that, and
generation?
you've learned that, and people that want to survive and not go to bed at night twitching and turning and drinking too much learned that they have to get people engaged. In fact, statistically, the best solutions are closest to the problem. They're not at the administrator level or the
Right.
regional level or the CEO level, because if you let every problem go to the top of an organization, there will be a new policy, procedure, form, checklist, in service, mandatory training. Something stupid will happen if you take every problem up. And we end up with staff going, how did we end up with this new form? Because we let those fools get involved and we should have solved the problem down here. But you have to use that on an ongoing basis. And it doesn't take very long to put that in a culture. Now, back to your question of differences. I don't think I've seen any difference in the younger generation other than they've responded to the supply and demand situation of staffing, and they know that I'm not going to put up with junk because there's somebody down the road that'll pay me the same or more. It's different than in that regard. There's jobs right down the road. So I don't think you can be ruthless, mean, nasty, but I think you can have positive accountability with people and they respond. Yes. I think that people, whether they're 18 or 32, love the fact that you say, I'm genuinely interested in what do you think we could do to fix it? What do you see out there? And I find that people respond to that very well. And we have methods that we put in our installations to make that happen, whether you want to do it or not as a manager. You know who can't make it in this profession? It's not the coworkers, it's the control freak managers that think they have to have all the answers. And one of the problems is you got into management because you were a circus freak to start with. You showed up for work, you did things, you solved problems, you fixed issues. And once you go up, you have to learn how to chill out and get other people involved.
Yeah.
There is one common factor that determines whether people at the direct care level will stay with you. That is, if you engage them, like I suggested, appreciate them, thank them, all that stuff. Not necessarily pizza parties and all that thing, although that's okay. It's that you care enough about them that you want them to be engaged, but you shouldn't hire them if they don't have one Southern term. And we teach this in behavioral interviewing with people. You have to be able to want to fuss over another human if you want to be a direct care worker. Fuss is a Southern term, and it means I want to position her in the wheelchair right. I want to wipe the egg yolks off her face. I want to make sure she looks great when her family comes in for Sunday visit. I want to make sure that she's totally dried off after the shower. If you don't like fuss behavior, you will not make it in direct care. You will not. So if you are an entitled person at 18 or 50 that believe you can get by without fussing and be lazy and not do the work and not care about people, and it works all the way up to care levels for a unit manager and a supervisor and an administrator. Care is a different compassion. It just layers on. You have to, as administrator, care about the residents and the families. Then you have to care about the staff. Then you have to care. But care doesn't mean enable or do everything for people or solve their problems for them or let them get by with crap. Care means I care enough to engage you in a culture of I want you to be hands-on, I want you to care about these people, and I want to know what you think make things better for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But how do you um identify that? You said behavioral interviewing. I mean, if you're interviewing somebody, what
So if
types
I'm
of
interviewing Joe as a direct care staff member, and first thing, I should be using, I'm not going to get into all of our stuff here, but we use an applicant risk assessment to even determine whether Joe deserves the interview or not. And that meaning red, green, yellow. Green, we should interview him. Yellow, we should be careful. What's a yellow? He's had 5 jobs in 3 years.
yeah,
Not that
yeah,
that doesn't mean we don't take a chance because he could have landed in 4 stupid places.
right.
But it's a yellow. What's a red? Somebody driving 50 miles one way for your pay at direct care, skipping 17 other nursing homes and 38 assisted livings to get a job for you. What's wrong there? That's a red. So okay, so we have a whole people coming in pajama bottoms for the interview. That's a red.
Yeah.
People coming in ankle bracelets. I'm not talking about jewelry. I'm talking about county place ankle bracelets. Okay. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't give people a second chance, but let them take their second chance down the road at Pagan View or Heathen Haven, not us first, and improve themselves. So, so an example of a behavioral. Joe, give me an example in your past when you had a chance to be a responsible person for somebody else's needs or care or in your life or in your personal life. And it can be a younger brother or sister, it can be a grandmother, it can be a family member. Tell me how you handled that. What'd you do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Give me a story about in the past when you were able to see somebody that you thought was really providing the care levels that somebody needed. Give me a specific example of how you would go about handling a person that has these current needs. And I might bring up an Alzheimer's wanderer. I might bring up an incontinent person. I might bring up, so those are the way you put those
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. That's good.
But you see, we don't believe that one person should be doing the interview either. So we believe in team-based interviews because if you got one freak hiring everybody, all they're going to do is give hall passes to people. And we found one. They happened to come through town, and we grabbed them and we hired them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
When I was a head nurse, I used to always end an interview by having my staff take the person on a tour of the facility of the
yeah.
unit.
Well,
And they
we actually have our staff take them on the tour before because if they are rude, mean, nasty, on their phone, got their headphones on, don't not paying attention, we don't even bother to take them to the team
yeah.
interview. So
Yeah.
we put it on the front end kind of thing. But
Yeah.
see, we're all about not finders keepers. We're about keepers who deserve to be found. So that means it's all about retention because 40% of the staffing turnover in healthcare, in whether it's a hospital, nursing home, home care, whatever, 40% is in the first 90 days of employment. If you keep them 90 days, you can keep them 9 months, keep them 9 months, keep them 2.5 years. But you have to decide to do what we call bubble wrap the new employees once they're hired. Now, part of the bubble wrapping is to decide if they even get the honor of getting in the bubble wrap to start with. That's the tour, the applicant risk assessment, the interviews, whatever. And then if you protect the new people, you can get the new hire turnover down to 10, 12% or lower. Now you're not spinning your wheels in the mud because what good
Right.
to do to hire three, lose two? See, everybody in the profession is worried about recruiting. There's not enough people. There's plenty of people. They just don't currently work for you.
Right.
See, that's a solution-oriented statement. But you have to decide that we're going to find the people that meet our mission, vision, and values kind of thing. If your values are somebody will pick up a lot of shifts and be counted on the PB&J data and they're an FTE, we have horrible names. We call residents the bedwetter in 213B, and we call, instead of Mrs. Harrison, we
Right.
call staff an FTE, a PRN. We call doctors in hospitals providers. They're physicians, not providers. I mean, I can go through hours on that topic, but the point is, it's not a recruiting problem, it's a retention issue. And that's why we're very picky on the front end about that, because we're looking for people who want to be led, who want to do well, who want to fuss, who want to uh, be engaged, who want to be able to say, I make a difference around here. I want somebody going home at night going, I made a difference today versus I
Yeah.
got my 8 hours in and I only really worked five of them because I was laid in a roller chair at the nursing desk for three of them.
That's right. And how do you ensure, effective leadership occurs through your organizations? A lot of our conversation has been on the direct care worker and making sure we find someone with that motivation that wants to fuss. What about the next level up? Those middle management leaders. How do you ensure effective leadership
In,
occurs?
in our world, we put them in the coaching that we do with the team that's going to work on the fix of the staffing or whatever. But those unit managers and charge nurses are particularly on the nursing side. And then it moves into other department managers for other departments. But the biggest staffing challenge is clinical in our world. But those unit managers and charge nurses, first of all, somebody became the charge nurse on Friday night because somebody else quit.
Yeah.
Somebody became the unit manager because they actually put 2 weeks in as a charge nurse. So we have not spent any time on training of those people. But if they have the gumption to want to do it, can see themselves in a career ladder, of sorts. It doesn't take much time to train those people on effective techniques because they don't know what they're doing. But if you give them what they'll default to is how they were led or managed by the previous person. So if it was a rogue bully managing them, they'll pick that up, or they'll swing clear the other way and be a weenie and not hold anybody accountable because they don't want to be seen like Dirty Don or Dirty Dorothy, the previous one. So you do have to spend some time on 8 to 10 principles that make a difference. So, example, one principle, giving feedback to people. Now, I grew up in a farming community, but I grew up in a German farming community. German farmers are very boom, right to the point. Okay. And they
Yeah.
learned to get that way because they didn't want to speak German anymore because it took 4 weeks to get a sentence out in German. But they got to the point. So in giving feedback to people as a leader, whether it's charge nurse, unit manager, department head, administrator, director of nursing, by the way, a big one's the assistant director of nursing. That's the person sent out by the director of nursing to do the evilness that the director doesn't want to do. So, so in any event, you can teach people in like 2 minutes how to give feedback, whether it's positive or improvement feedback. And there's only three things you have to be. You have to be immediate, you have to be specific, and you have to be pure. What does immediate mean? If I'm going to tell Jeremy he did something good or not so good, The best time to tell Jeremy that's within 30 minutes of the time it actually happened. It does no good to tell Jeremy, I really like what you did last February on this particular patient. Jeremy goes, was I on chemicals back in February? I have no memory of February. And you can't wait and sum up the bad stuff Jeremy did on his annual performance review. And doing 30 minutes, 30 minutes. What's the best nest number? 31. What's the best nest number? 32. What happens if it happens on Friday and you're off on the weekend? Then Monday morning. This is the best way. You have to be specific. You can't mix messages. If I need to tell Jeremy that he has a personal hygiene problem, that's a very delicate thing to say. I can't say, Jeremy, smelled anything different around here lately? I mean, he didn't know what I'm talking about, you know? What's that odor, on this side of the unit? I also can't be too specific. Jeremy, good God, wash your pits. I mean, that's too specific, but I have to be specific that you have a hygiene problem, it's a body odor problem, and I need to tell you about that now. Okay, now that's a very tough example. So if you can pull that one off, you can pull other stuff off.
Yeah,
And then you have to be pure. You can't mix messages. You can't say, Jeremy, I want to tell you how great an aide you are, and you're really a great coworker, and I really appreciate all the extra hours you put in. However, your documentation sucks. Where you
yeah,
use the old sandwich technique, somehow that
yeah,
got taught, and
Sandwich,
that's a
we do.
terrible,
Terrible.
terrible
yeah.
process. It
Doesn't
just
work.
sets people up. And you also can't tell people good news by railing on them about everything wrong. And then at the end going, well, Jeremy, I still believe you can fix things. And at least you show up for work. I mean, that's useless. So immediate, specific, and pure. And you can teach any leader to do that in about 5 to 10 minutes and then practice it
Yep.
with
Yep.
return demonstrations and let them go try it. And people come back and go, God, it works. I got people listening to me. People appreciate me. Because now I'm not telling them to only look for bad stuff or only look for good stuff. I'm just telling them to give feedback, which is your job.
Yep. Clint,
Absolutely.
Clint, even before it was in vogue, you've always been outcome measure oriented. You've always been data driven. What do you see on the horizon with artificial intelligence and the impact on our industry and how to be a good leader? Do you see I know you work with a lot of leaders across the country. You see anybody really leveraging that to
I
really?
do see some people using Claude or ChatGPT to come up with scenario training on helping leaders to the wordage, the phraseology, the way to say things to people that of course, AI collects that from the best practices out there, all the way from books and periodicals and whatever. I do see people using that to do just-in-time training with people to get them up to speed on stuff. An example the other day, I saw a client use it on what's the best way to announce this very negative press story we had in our community um, that would allow everybody to be able to say the right thing, the same thing, the legal thing that did not put us in jeopardy. And I saw even the compliance people at the corporate office putting that together using AI. I think AI has a place. I think we're not going to replace human interaction with other humans on leadership.
Right.
Okay. So that won't happen in
But
healthcare.
how about on the data side, though? I think it. Have you seen anybody?
Oh, there's hundreds of companies
Yeah,
that are using data analytics that daily scrub things all the way
yeah,
from
yeah.
PB&J data to staffing analysis to how many points you need to hit the star level you need for CMS star ratings to competitor analysis to revenue scrapings. I mean, there's all that out there kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And in fact, that's a big industry that'll get very crowded. And the real problem is on technology, the average healthcare provider in various states only has so much spend they can spend monthly.
yeah.
And it gets worse if myself or my company encumbered half of my cash I make monthly to make debt service payments or lease payments. Okay, so now I'm down to a little bit left to pay staff and a little bit for groceries. So I don't know how much spend I've got on technology left. Now there's some technology people have to have, med records, okay, and people will pay for that. Then they'll buy some other useful technology that makes a difference or gets a positive ROI. But there's never going to be enough space in the monthly spend if I got to buy a $500 a month platform here and an $800 here and a $600 here and a $1,000. I'm out of money. I'm out of money.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even want to get me started on the number of contracts that people have in organizations that are laying dormant, they're not using. By the way, that's a big business right now, reclaiming unused technology stuff like junkyard dogs finding stuff or storage wars and getting the money back or repurposing it somehow or getting a different contract. I mean, and sometimes it just happens because a new administrator comes in and they don't want to use the technology anymore. Sometimes it comes in because a new company bought the building and they don't want to use it, but they're paying out the contract. So, it's unbelievable. It's the new version of a hallway down a nursing home that the back part of the hallway is full of broken wheelchairs, which is always very attractive too, kind of thing. Walkers and wheelchairs and braces stored at the end of the hallway near the therapy gym. But that's the same thing with this. So back to your question, there's going to be a place and there is a use. I do find the next big iteration for AI and for leaders will be give me the way I can make a difference on this scenario for this person. I think it's
Yeah.
just in time AI usage.
Yeah. Interesting.
Absolutely. And I just actually listened to a webinar about HIPAA and AI, and it brings up a whole separate, which could be a whole nother episode on some of the dangers that legally you can get yourself into using AI for HR conversations, for
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to be careful. By the way, I
have to
do
be
a
very
5 minute,
careful.
I do a 5 second HIPAA training if you'd like to know. Let me give it to you.
Let's hear it.
Knock, knock,
Who's there?
HIPAA.
Can't tell me.
You're supposed to
Oh,
say HIPAA who?
oh,
I can't tell you. Okay, so.
nice, nice. I like that. You don't have a need to know. Yeah,
Oh
Anyway,
Joe and I
I've
did.
not been asked to do much
uh,
HIPAA training, as you might know. So,
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah,
By the
Joe and
way,
I did an episode a few weeks ago about AI and that whole idea of how the overuse of AI is really going to start making managers and one-on-one communications much more valuable, much more rare. And as you
there,
said, you can't
yeah.
replace that.
But see, the pendulum's going to swing high tech, high touch. It
Yeah.
always swings.
Yeah.
And here's the problem: when people realize that your performance review you wrote on me was cooked up by AI, and you spent 2 seconds getting ready for it because it was due today under the
Yeah.
company's requirements for that. People are not going to like that. I want you to be genuine with me. And first of all, we shouldn't just the annual review one more time. I'm not opposed to an annual review or a quarterly review. We should be telling people straight to their face the good and bad when it happens. That's back to what I said a while ago.
Absolutely. I don't do annual reviews on my immediate staff. I meet with them monthly.
Yeah.
Um, we have a standing monthly meeting. I meet with every single one of my leaders monthly. Um, and I give them feedback at that point. I'm also, very open to giving them immediate feedback um, when it needs to happen.
Well,
So,
well,
yeah, I've never done, yeah,
yeah.
5 years haven't done annual reviews on anyone.
First of all, if you have to go 12 months to tell people 12 months in a row that you're not meeting the standards, why did you go 12 months?
Right.
There's probably a de-hire conversation that should be having, or a recalibration or a performance improvement plan or a new job that's better suited to what you can do. I mean, I can make a list of mile long, but we shouldn't be taking it on out forever anyway. And so,
Yeah,
and by the way, people like to be talked with on a continuous basis. One of the leadership challenges is if you don't like chatting with people, this is a people profession. So if I tell people all the time, if you don't like old people and frail old people, you shouldn't work in long-term care, actually in acute care too, because that's 50% of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
population. If you don't like talking with people, you shouldn't be in management or leadership kind of thing. So if you prefer your computer in your office with your door closed as a continuous basis of your business model, you need to move on. You're going to be a
yeah.
miserable failure. Where's leadership rounding? Where's conversations? If you can't go out and name your coworker, your employees, and how are you doing, Joe? And how'd the soccer game go with your kid? Or did you kill the dog yet on duck hunting? I mean, if you can't be personable and conversational and out there with people, then what are you doing? The game is not to be played in the office. Now, I do think if you're out a lot, you have the right to close the door and say, "Leave me alone for an hour so I can do these reports I've got to do or this whatever." I mean, but I'm always on people who want to start the morning meeting in a nursing home or assisted living at 10 o'clock because they can't get in. Their hair's wet. They run in. They've not done any rounding, whatever. And they circle people in a circle of doom and they go around going, "All right, dietary, do you have anything? We're having meatloaf. Uh, Therapy, anything? We're waiting on the new parallel bars. Social work, we might be admitting to, don't hit me." And we're going around the circle of doom and we call that a meeting.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. My kids used to ask me when they were little, Daddy, what do you do at work? And I would say, well, I talk to people. And they're like,
yeah,
really? That's your job? And I would say, yeah, I walk around, I drink coffee, and I talk to people. And
I
that's my,
got to tell you, people really respond. That doesn't fit everybody's need. There are introverts that like to be left alone. There's the nurse aide that doesn't like to partner with anybody and just leave me on the back end of the hall and leave me alone. uh, that's okay as long as they're being personable with other coworkers and not being rude and mean, and they're being personable with the families and residents. I'm always hearing people want to say, "I'm very personable with the residents. I just don't like the rest of the coworkers." I very much doubt that. I don't
Yeah,
think it's a
yeah,
Jekyll and Hyde. I think you're a crapshoot all the time,
yeah,
and you just want to do your little devious things. But I do believe that people really like people out and about, chatting them up, rolling up their sleeves in some cases, answering a call light. That doesn't mean you know, could actually do the care if you're not a certified nurse aide, but to be present, to be helpful, to go
yeah,
out at lunchtime, and I have to stop so many buildings that it's lunchtime and all the aides and the dietary are in a 2 out of 3 death match over tray passing, and meanwhile the entire management team went out to lunch.
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yep.
I mean,
The other thing
the
I,
game is
yeah,
on, and you're not there for it.
yeah.
You know,
The other thing I
so
learned about rounding is what you pay attention to is what people will pay attention
oh,
to.
trust me.
So,
If you do 3 rounds and go those wheelchairs at the end of the hall, that example I gave her, they'll go away. They'll
right,
go away and they'll stay away because they know it matters, kind of thing. If you walk past them, you're going to have not that half of the hallway filled, you're going to have the whole hallway filled full of
right,
broken
right.
wheelchairs. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's what you pay attention to. And it's not just the things I'm talking about like wheelchairs. I pay attention to things like even you are required to have your name tag on. Let's take a moment here and put it on. And thank you for putting it on. And tomorrow when I go back out, I got it on my crib sheet and it's on and I go thank you. Well, it's a big difference maker.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
But I think the issue of leadership is extremely different than you're in management because and you all know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know and the audience doesn't know. There's a lot of people can be leaders that are never in management. There's a great nurse aide out there that's leading the troops every
yeah,
day. And there are people in management that don't have leadership skills. Okay. And so I will say, though, in healthcare today, with the economic pressures, the staffing pressures, the regulatory compliance issues, I mean, you guys are in New York, and the state wants to make sure you're paid from 30 years ago base rates, uh,
yeah,
and also fine you for staffing, well,
Yeah.
there's
Staffing
other
fine.
states. It's
Yeah,
not just New
absolutely.
York, but I don't think we have the luxury anymore to have managers in critical positions that are not leaders. Example, if I'm wanting to run a 100-bed nursing home and I need to be able to make it operate with short-term rehab to be successful because it's our niche, our known product. And so I need that 30-bed unit full. I better have a real leader running that 30-bed short-term rehab unit. Now, do I do I not want a great leader on the memory care unit or the long-term unit or the hospice hallway? What I'm not saying I don't want, but if I'm got to pick my battles of who I'm going to train or who I'm going to get, I'm going to put it where I can get the difference I need.
Most critical. Yeah.
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 And
Absolutely.
well, you all, I mean, sometimes people inherit buildings and they just leave people in the same jobs and I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day that would have loved to run the rehab unit. And they had them in charge of the memory care unit. Not that they didn't care about memory care people, but they were all about get well, go home and clinical complexity and pushing the envelope on the clinical grid. But they were never put over there.
Right. And a lot of times we get hung up on the degree too. So, we
Well,
always think
yeah.
your nurse manager should be an RN. Some of the greatest nurse managers that I've ever met are LPNs. And I've had therapy directors that are codas. And because it's about leadership, and you're leading the unit. You're not, the actual clinical expert of, you can't be there all the time, but
Boy, Jeremy,
it needs to be.
that's
Right.
exactly right. I do think we get now there are certain places where you have to have a license or a degree or a certification to be able to do certain things. But I mean, the proof of that is a great housekeeper that wants to go over and become certified as a nurse aide because they really have compassion to do care, not because they get paid more money necessarily. That's a great move kind of thing. There are people that are nursing assistants that really, really, really would love to be the cook on the afternoon shift because they love that whole thing. And I mean, it's a move that keeps a person, makes them happy, whatever. But back to the degree or title, if that's all you're going to put down, and I do see some people popping out ads, and the first thing they got is the educational requirements at the top, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
very
have to have a
intriguing.
master's
Yeah.
degree and 15 years experience, and we're going to pay you $18 an hour.
Well, yeah, that's my favorite thing. I'd like you to have been in the game all the time. And yeah, I do get people to say, Clint, what's your ROI? 7 to 1. That's what we do. Or otherwise, no one should buy a consultant, 7 to 1. Well, your one is pretty high. Yeah, but the seven's real high, on the
Yeah. Yeah.
return. So, if you're going to ask me to, um, try to run a special on Craigslist or eBay for consulting. We're not going to do that. But at the other side,
Yeah.
we're all about ROI, and this I think individuals need to be part of ROI. I put 8 hours in today,
Right.
and boy, they got 24 hours worth of care, commitment, leadership, management, strategy, whatever I'm supposed to deliver. They got it. They got it today. That's what people need to feel good about. I delivered.
Absolutely.
Well said. Well said.
Yes.
But I do think you guys are the thing that is interesting about leadership is once you have great leaders in an organization, whether it's multi-location or an individual, how do you go about interviewing them on these tough topics yourself and then writing down the best practices that they do and or video them and using them in your own tutorials with other people? I mean,
Yeah.
you don't we don't need to look if I'm not suggesting there aren't great coaches out there and other people that can help in training classes and webinars and that's all good stuff. But you've got a talented charge nurse right now, a talented unit manager right now, a director of nursing in one of
Yeah,
your seven buildings that's a kick rear kind of director of nursing.
yeah,
I mean, you need to, first of all, you need to keep them, but second of all, you need to keep what they know for prosperity because one day they might do things like win the Powerball or retire.
Absolutely. Yeah. Focusing on the good. We just had survey in our nursing home a couple of weeks ago, and they are always
right,
ripping me up
right.
in there. And then I heard the nursing home administrator the following Monday in morning report, and she walked in and she said, "Here's all the good things you did last week." And she went down this whole list of good
Yeah.
things. And then she said, "And here's all the things you did not get cited on last week." And she went down, and it's just that positive reinforcement to say, yeah, you got tore up by the state because that's what they do, and they're very critical
Right.
of you. And survey was good. We didn't get torn up, but it was a good survey. But any survey is you leave there, beaten up. And she built her staff back up, saying, "Here's all the great things that you did," and
See, I
celebrate
love that.
those.
I love that because the blame game goes on when a survey goes bad. By the way, do you know that if you have 11 or more tags and any scope and severity tags at all, you in a 100-bed nursing home, you will lose 11 staff members
Wow, no, I didn't know that.
Hmm. Interesting.
because the blame,
Yeah,
the plans of correction,
yeah,
the accountability, the pressure, they just go, I'm going down the road.
Yeah,
No, not 11 tags that are just small tags, but I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about where there's an ad harm tag on there and we got to get it corrected, or there's a penalty, a fine, or double secret probation, or whatever kind of thing. 11.
wow,
Wow. Interesting.
By the way, it also will cost you um, in occupancy money at an average
Sure.
national rate of $400,000.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
and that's not counting the loss to replace the people. So
Yeah,
take 11 people away plus $400,000 worth of revenue.
yeah.
yep.
Better be prepared for a survey.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
I tell people as a joke, people want to say it's our window for survey. There's no window. There's a big damn garage door and they can drive in anytime they want to.
Anytime they want.
And we invite them in with complaints that we have to call in, or
Yep, yep.
reportables. I mean, there's no window anymore. What are you talking about?
Right,
Window.
right.
Right. You should always be ready because you're right. If you do even a self-report, um, they can come in and look at everything.
First
Yep.
of all, the window is an imaginary thing in 35 states because they don't have enough surveyors to survey according to the window. So they're behind by a year and a half in some states on the
Yeah.
window, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So,
Your 9 to 15 months is in New York is much higher than that.
oh,
It's
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we're
Kentucky,
27, 28
Kentucky, I think,
months.
just went through 3.5 years behind.
Oh my
Three and a half.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, but the point you're making is your administrative leader took the time to point out how good a survey it was and the specifics of what was good. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was
Because you
yeah, when I made the transition from acute care to long-term care. That was the thing that blew me away. In acute care you get surveyed by Joint Commission and they're much more consultative. Um, the long-term care survey is basically going through a speed trap and they're looking to give you a ticket. And then I noticed that in long-term care, everything, as you said, Clint, is very reactionary. Somebody needs to be whacked when something goes wrong instead
Mhm.
of looking at the root cause. And maybe it was my fault as a director of nursing and not having the systems in place that resulted in, it's like chair alarms. I did away with chair alarms because all chair alarms did was call you when somebody fell. It didn't prevent
Yeah,
the fall.
after we broke their
Right,
arm,
right, and it got the poor aides in trouble all the time because if they forgot to change the batteries, they got the attorney general comes in and interrogates them for abuse, right? But the thing never even had a chance of keeping them from falling. So
no.
you're putting the aide at significant risk for something that didn't even have a benefit.
Again, retroactivity will kill any business,
Yeah,
and there are plenty of examples in our profession. But you see, great leaders take mock surveys seriously. They prepare every day. They run QAPI vigilantly. It's not a meaningless exercise. They go out and check and inspect and trust but verify, using an old Ronald Reagan term, where, I'm going to trust you, but I'm going to check it and I'm going to tell you how you did, good and bad. Well, you don't get into survey issues, with that kind of approach, because it's not the survey you're doing it for a higher level. First of all, I have to remind X amount of leaders on the planet every week that passing the state survey is the minimum standards for participation. That means you got a D minus. Whether it
Yeah.
was one tag or 12 tags, you got a D minus. And they can't stand to hear that, because it's not an A. Now, we brag about zero deficiencies, and it's tough to get, or only three deficiencies, low level. It's tough to do, but we signed the document for participation in Medicaid and Medicare. We elected to sign to be in the program that says these are the minimum standards. Now, they're ambiguous, vague, interpreted by weirdos in some cases, all over the planet with that. And so I guess if we can go to AI for surveyors, where we can rid human things like ABS for baseball, where it was in or out for a strike, maybe that would make a difference. I don't know if we had artificially intelligent surveys that it's matter of fact, yes or no kind of thing, but I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, some consistency would be very much appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, your state, as an example, has a known pocket of a region that
I'm in that.
you don't want to run a building in,
Yeah, I'm in that pocket. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, we've actually looked at the data, and it's very
And
true.
by the way, that pocket has existed with new people in the government jobs,
Right.
so it is a passed down philosophy of
Yep.
culture about
Yep.
survey processes.
Yeah,
But in any event, I just think leaders are proactive. They're out there, they're talking things up, they're inspecting things, they're telling people good and bad, right and wrong. If that sounds like, my old German philosophy of to the point and straight and hit it, it is, because that's what I think it works.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think people appreciate that.
people do appreciate that, and I think not only the person receiving the feedback, but also their peers, because they like to see their peers held accountable.
Right.
And definitely, it encourages people when they see someone get called out for behavior that they've chosen not to do.
People get that habit of seeing, if you're telling me I did something wrong, I just would wish you would also say to other people,
Yeah.
or I wish I would quit have to cover for somebody who continues to not do it right. Because I go out of my way to make things happen. I'm responding to four more call lights than I should, and I'm doing two more toilet runs than I should, and I'm doing uh, five more family conversations than I should, because somebody else is getting by with perhaps slacker behavior.
Right, right. Hiding in the shower room. It's always the classic, and call them out. Clint, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Leaders Abstract. If people wanted to follow up with you, where could we find you?
Well, my uh, phone number is at most of the interstate rest stops, and no, not really. The simple way to get me is just my email is real simple. It's Clint at Clint Maun, ClintMaun.com. Clint at ClintMaun.com. You can also reach us on our website, maunlemke.com, MAUNLEMKE.com. And we have free articles up there, free information for people. We believe in that process. You can also see what we do in our world of those areas I mentioned on revenue and staffing. But I will tell you that there's a host of things up there for people to use, and articles on leadership up there that people are free to take and use, and we have a lot of people that use those things and make a difference. But Clint at clintmaun.com. I'd be happy to take any questions or respond, or if somebody's got something that's driving them nuts, they want me to answer for them, be happy to do that.
Great. And we'll make sure we have all those items linked in the description of this podcast. Thanks for listening to the Leaders Abstract. These episodes are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn with any questions or suggestions. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Rutter, my co-host, Mr. Joe Tomaino, and this has been the Leaders Abstract.